Please have a seat. Just a few little pictures to give you a flavour of what Download 2024 was like. As you can see, that was the 21st Download Festival. Before that, it was the Monsters of Rock. But that was day one before we had a sort of, I guess, a reimagining of the biblical flood. That was one of the groups that I really wanted to see. They're a group called, you might wonder about the name, All Them Witches. There's nothing to do with that at all. They are just basically a metal stroke blues band. They're really good, like them a lot. The weather had changed somewhat, as you can see in that image, and they were handing out these little, glorified plastic bags, really. I suggest that's what they were, but a lot of people were finding them very helpful, and they soon ran out because it got very muddy. That's after day one. This is what they had to do to try and make it a bit safer. They had straw going everywhere. I mean, it would have been great at Christmas if we could have had a couple of bales for nothing. Never seen so much straw in one place in my life. But it'd be fair to say it didn't help for long. As one of my fellow chaplains in a somewhat little muddy spot. But what an amazing photo that is, God's promise above the Download Festival. I saw that one, I thought that's got to make it into today. Now for me, this is one of the groups I'd wanted to see for some time. I hope the volume's right. This is a group called Pantero, hadn't played in this country for about 19 years. I thought I'd just give you a little flavour. Told you. If you want any more, you'll have to buy it, sorry. If you're interested, it's a song called Walk, but see me afterwards. A nighttime shot of what Download looks like, just to give you another little perspective of what it's like. This is one of the groups, this is the headliner on the last night. This is one of the groups I really wanted to see. And I was there listening to them with my oldest boy and his friend, so that was really good. And this was a photo of what they would look like at night. So I know you can't, I know you're regretting not being there, but... I don't know. Anyway, time to get a little bit serious. What an opportunity. It was again another amazing opportunity to take Jesus into this really unique environment. This will give you an idea of what the site was like. There's a bit of a gap down the middle because of this sea of mud, but that's just one of the 4 stages that were there. There were roughly this year 75,000 people present. We had a team of nearly 40 chaplains. So with that sort of ratio, there was going to be a lot of opportunities to chat to people throughout the 3 days. Again, the chaplaincy team was made up of people like me who love the music and others who, probably a bit like Lydia, aren't very keen. But all of us were there because we wanted the chance to show God's love to anyone that we could. As believers, we are called to do this, to go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. And for the 3 days of the Download Festival, that was our world. And in that time, we could do that in both what we said and what we did. So what did we get up to this time? Well, this is the team on day one before all the crowds and the rain arrived. We stood at the front of the chaplaincy tent Although when I looked at the photo, I realised that one of the newest recruits was missing, but we found her. Here she is. I was team leader at this point, which meant I had to stay in the tent for the first 4 hours with the radio, make sure that everything went smoothly and that the chaplains who were out and about were safe and well. And over the 3 days, the chaplaincy team would have a few people at the tent. The rest of us would go out in pairs across the site. But whether at the tent or out on the site, we again had some amazing encounters with people. And this year we had a group WhatsApp prayer chain, which we could use to share the significant encounters that we had with people. There was also a box where you could put written notes in. But from all of this, they were able to generate the daily prayer letters that would go out to the various churches involved. Because what's hugely important with Download, what you wouldn't know not being part of it, before the festival even begins, people walk the site and pray over it. So it is all covered with prayer. But not all the conversations were necessarily deep ones. It could be general. Where's the toilets? Where can I get water? First aid. One guy came up to me as I was holding a beer saying, do you know where you take these? Because you can get a big pile of empties and they give you money for them. And he had a stack about 30 foot high. So I was able to help him with that. I also had conversations with various people about the music that was being played and who we'd like to see on the lineup for next year. Pretty well without exception, people were surprised to see us there. Even included some of the Christians who we would encounter. Even, again, some of the chaplains who'd never encountered the world of heavy metal went away with a different idea of what it was all about. The chaplaincy tent, as always, was a place of refuge for anybody feeling low, someone who drunk too much, on this occasion had got too wet, or just wanted a moment to step aside from all that was going on. One couple with 2 young children and a baby were trying to find some shelter from the pouring rain just so they could feed the baby. No problem. Mum and baby were ushered into the tent to grab a seat, and she was able to feed her little one out of the rain. I don't want to appear critical at this point, but it'd be fair to say that when this happened, Pauline became a bit distracted. Quite a bit distracted. I think 15 minutes distracted or something like that. But Pauline and I would just like to share some of the stories and prayers, requests that we had. So Pauline, do you want to come and join me? Because I know to begin with, you'd like to say something about this, the weather.
Yeah.
It's over to you.
Yeah, I've put a few things down here, and I haven't got my glasses, so I might not remember what I'm saying. But anyway, I knew about this kind of thing because I see it on the TV. But Jeff and I had once been to a folky kind of festival where it got a bit like this. But you have to be really careful. I mean, Lydia, if you ever become a chaplain, you just got to walk really carefully because you can slip.
Don't forget the mic.
I think the thing about when Paul had mentioned that there was such a thing as being a chaplain, I don't know if it was after church one day, I just thought, I want to do that. The minute he said it was like, that's for me, because I have a tendency to wander around Bridgeford chatting to people that I don't know and making new friends that way and chatting to homeless people and the thought of having an opportunity to maybe perhaps wear a cross and be available, because obviously we were not out there to evangelize. We weren't supposed to nab people and say, by the way, I want to tell you, something that but quite often you did get the chance. But yeah, I really, really knew as soon as you said about this, it's like, that's for me. Now, bear in mind that I do like rock music, not quite that one that Paul played there, but Lydia, if you think that what he played you there was awful, let me tell you, it gets a lot more awful than that. A lot more awful than that. There was one time there were the two big stages were there, and we were at the Jesus tent, and the music started, and it's like boom in your chest. You think, "Whoa, gosh, that's loud!" And so Bambi Thug was playing. Now, Bambi Thug is it fair to say she was?
Well, I can't use the word in church.
Can't you? Right, okay. She was on the dark side of belief, to say the least, and her visual appearance was just horrible, and the music was off the scale horrible. In fact, it was, I'd like to try and do it for you, actually. There's... I'm not a good singer, but what I heard on the night that Bambi Thug was playing and this other band was playing, they did the whole set, bear in mind it was called music, and they did it like this. It was like a growly, grizzly thing, sort of like... That's what they... And the thing is, I didn't know that you could... I mean, I had heard that kind of sound once in some music I'd heard, but it was just a little bit of a growl at the end. But she was the whole time, and so was this other band, and there we were getting for a while, and really, really loud. So that wasn't very nice. But I did hear some really lovely music of a guitarist who's amazing, and I've looked him up since, and I really enjoy his stuff. So am I all right to carry on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, right, okay. What have I got here? The going out in 2x2. You get different partners at different times. I went out with you a couple of times, didn't I, and wandered around and see what happened. And, you know, you're there to sort of be helpful to people. At the very beginning, we were welcoming people and saying, "Oh, yeah, who have you come to see?" And they were there with all their gear, making their way to the pitch and everything. And quite a lot of people came to see Pantera, that Paul has just played you, lots of people. And Avenged Sevenfold, nearly always they wanted to see those too. Nobody mentioned Bambi Thug, I have to say. But so on my first sort of half hour doing this, I went out with all this clothing on because it was cold, little handbag with my purse and my money in it, and I needed a coffee. And so the two of us, me and this guy, we went to the coffee stand, and then we went to the place where you do the milk. And I was getting really hot, so I took my stuff off and put my handbag over the tow bar of a caravan, and walked away and left it. Yeah, and so we were walking around saying to people, "Can we help you with your stuff?" And then I went, "I've forgotten I've left my handbag by where everybody goes to get the milk." So there's the coffee, the milk, my handbag was there. So anybody could have come along and just, you know, kind of had the coffee and my handbag. Anyway, the guy who I was with said, "Let's just pray about this as we walk back to see if it's still there." So we prayed and walked, and it was there. After about 20 minutes or so, there it was. Nobody touched it. So that was a lovely, lovely answer to prayer. And as we were wandering, lots and lots of the security people, they were really pleased we were there, weren't they? They'd say things like, "It's really good that you're here. We're glad you're here." Because we talked to them a lot and just asked them how they were getting on. And one guy I spoke to with this partner who I was with was a Muslim, and we had I know quite a bit about Islam, not loads, but I know quite a bit. And we got into talking about Islam and about Jesus. So sometimes the talks got quite deep, and sometimes they were just very, very general. What have I got here? I can't read what that says. That's all right. I think that's said that. Negative remarks. I didn't hear one negative response to anything about to the team, and I don't know if you did. Nobody said, off on your bike or anything like that. So I was very, very pleased about that. The mud. The lady that you saw standing in the mud, she was my partner. For one day. She's a therapist, and she's kind of used to dealing with people and their issues. And she was really nice to walk around with. And as we walked around, we met a couple. Have you got a picture of? Oh, this is Paul being humbled, by the way. This is Paul scattering the hay to sort of calm the mud down. But I have to say, the hay only worked for about, an hour? Something like that. We were back into the mud again after that. Yeah, this girl here, I saw her and I said to her, she's got sinner written across there. And I went, sinner, I'm one of those. I said, actually, all us chaplains, we're all sinners too, I said. And then I said something about being forgiven. But anyway, the guy she was with, I don't know, is there any more of him? Oh, that bit, yeah. The guy she was with, that's Jill, who I was with. And I'd been talking to her, the girl, and she was having a chat to him. And she was talking about his tattoos. He was tattooed, and you can't see it with his hat there, but his whole head was tattooed. And he had one coming down there, and he had them all on his arms. And he lifted up his front, showed all the tattoos there. And I said, are there any on your back? It was like, yeah, there's on the back, they're around the legs. He was tattooed all over. And Jill asked him about one of the tattoos, and this was quite one of the things we often did when we were out, chatting about tattoos. I'd go, gosh, that's a good tattoo, Stan. Where'd you get that one? Who did that? And what does that mean to you? And this guy got really seriously emotional at this point. And Jill said, would you like us to pray for you? And he said, yes. Yes, please. So we prayed for him, and that was a very, very special moment, really. And there were moments like that. And what I didn't expect, I had two encounters with an encounter with two different people who had some pastoral issues that I was able to spend time with and listen to, and hopefully say something that was helpful back to them. And that was something that I didn't sort of anticipate. I kind of thought of everybody just being, I don't know, not a Christian, I suppose. And I think that was it. And what else? Yeah, and Jill is the one who was standing in the mud. She arrived one day with her net skirt on, that's a net skirt she's wearing there, and she's got really funky tights. And I thought, that's a bit unusual. So there's room for me to kind of branch out of the jeans and wear something, whatever. But I think what I'd like to say all in all is that to be there and to have the chance to just chat to, because I'm always chatting to people, but to actually know that you're wearing a cross and anybody might want to go a bit deeper and ask you more questions. It was a real privilege. It was a privilege to be in the Jesus tent, and to there was a time there where a very, very spaced out guy who could barely sit up, he wanted to have prayer as well, and he had tears running down his face when he was being prayed for. So there was just some wonderful encounters, and I just feel very, very privileged to have been able to go. But I have to say something, Lydia, if you want to go, you have to apply in writing, and you have to have 2 referees. And I would say, yeah, why not? I'd write you a reference.
Thanks, Pauline. I think Pauline slightly understated her eagerness to be part of it, because from the moment she found out about it, I think I was like, you won't forget, will you, Paul? You won't forget. You will give me the... The one thing I would take slight issue with, Pauline mentioned bands that growl. I get what you did, but perhaps this will give you a real flavour of what Pauline's trying to talk about. This is a group called Fear Factory and a song called Replica. They do a bit of growling. They are. That's what Pauline was talking about. Oh yeah, you get worse, but I only had so many clips I could go through. A couple of conversations I had, strange enough, some of the conversations I had were really about the Christian view of heavy metal. And so as a fan, I was able to explain that perhaps one of the issues is sometimes the imagery that some of these groups use. They may depict things that are perceived as dark, sinister, and possibly even satanic. But for many of these groups, it would literally just be an artistic leaning. They've got no real understanding of what might sit behind it. They don't understand that some of these things do depict dark powers and things like that. There are obviously a lot of misconceptions with groups being satanic when they're just not. It's just some of the imagery that they've used. I chatted with one couple about a group that I've followed for years. Obviously they're no longer going, but a group called Black Sabbath. Now, their name would undeniably suggest they're into the occult. And yet, the way they got the name is nothing like that. One of the band members one time was watching an old black and white horror film. The word came up on the screen. What a great name for a group. And a lot of their songs would be about the battle between good and evil, and that God is the victor in all these situations. But as Pauline said, some groups do embrace the occult. The Bambi Thug, if you don't, some of you will have seen her because she was Ireland's entry in the Eurovision. And she is very much into the occult and blood sacrifices and things. So there are dark and sinister aspects, but there's dark and sinister aspects to lots of genres of music. Whether it's they're leaning towards gun culture, gangs, sex, violence, things like that. But one couple I spent some time with were called Jamie and Megan. They came to the tent, and it was clear that Megan was very anxious. Chatting to them, it came out that they were both living with neurodiversity, and they had mobility issues. They were having trouble finding their way around the site, and no amount of explanation was helping. In fact, it was actually making it worse. It was like information overload. So rather than try that, I thought, right, I'm just going to take you on a tour of the site. So off we went. And we went all around the various areas of the site where the accessibility areas were, things like that. And as we were chatting, Megan said that she had a faith, so we spoke a little bit about that. And Jamie then piped up, I don't, but she likes me how I am. To which I replied, she might like you even more if you shared her faith. Can I pray that happens? Oh, go on then, was the response. You just don't know, do you? But again, another opportunity. And then a really quick encounter. I'm literally getting ready to listen to Avenged Sevenfold. A lad taps me on the shoulder. Could you pray for my gran? I've just found out she's had a stroke. Just so many things like that. None of these things could happen if we weren't invited by the organisers of Download to be there. And who knows what can come of them. Again, like last year, we held a communion service on the Sunday morning. Just I stood at the back of the tent. It was a bit trickier this time because the site conditions were so bad, they literally delayed the opening of the site. And so at the time we were holding communion, we were trying to compete with the groups that were already on stage. And it's fair to say their PA was more powerful than ours. But even so, people coming onto the site stopped and took communion with us. And then one final little image that I'd like to share is as a result of one of my fellow ministers. He introduced us to what I would say is a very new way of spreading the gospel. Now, I'm not convinced that holding somebody at gunpoint is the way forward, but I'm all for being creative. Literally, this is how this guy had come to Download. dress like that. There's all sorts. But can I again, we've laughed and we've joked, but can I again say thank you for releasing me to be part of this ministry? Because if you didn't, I wouldn't be able to. And I know Pauline is very glad that she's been able to be part of it because it is so exciting, it's so unique. All we did was totally guided by the Spirit. There's no agenda, no script, just a desire to engage with anybody who's there. And if the opportunity arises, say something about Jesus. There were so many conversations, so many prayer requests. I have no doubt God will be using those to speak into people's lives. Date for your diary. Download next year is the 13th to the 15th of June. Again, this year our presence was noticed and it was welcomed. We've been told that by the organisers. And it's hoped that a meeting is going to take place around September when we can perhaps discuss other options to even get even more involved. So could you pray for that in the times ahead? Pray that perhaps other opportunities will arise. That God will not just keep the door open for us to be at Download, but we can actually find other ways to connect to the people who come to the festival. Let's just pray. Lord, thank you for the doors that you open to us. Thank you, they're doors that we would have never imagined. But Lord, you can use all these things. Lord, I would continue to pray for all those conversations, all those requests for prayer. I pray, Lord, that you will use them. We know that none of them will have been wasted on you. And we know that there will be encounters perhaps that we never realized have happened. But Lord, you were there. You were there through those 3 days. You were there before the event began. Lord, would you just bless all those conversations, I pray. And would you be at work even now about how we can again take you to that festival in 2025. But Lord, thank you for the opportunity. Amen.